a boy who became a king who became a god who bent the world to his will. Alexander the Great did not just conquer lands, he conquered minds. He did not just lead men, he owned their very souls. How? Through a force more powerful than any sword: psychology. The power to inspire, manipulate, and control those around him until they would die for his name. This is the story of how one man used the darkest tools of the mind to rule the ancient world. Before he was a conqueror, Alexander was a student. His first lessons were not in war, but in power. His father, the great Philip of Macedon, had already laid the foundations of an empire. But Philip ruled with force, while Alexander learned that true control lay not in the body, but in the mind. And he learned from the greatest manipulator of them all, his own teacher, Aristotle. From Aristotle, Alexander learned the power of perception, the power of making men believe in something greater than themselves. He was taught the art of persuasion, the subtlety of words, the psychology of leadership. He learned that men do not fight for gold or glory, they fight for a cause, for a leader who makes them believe they are part of something divine. Alexander would take these lessons and craft the most loyal army the world had ever seen. When Alexander spoke, men listened, not because he commanded them, but because he made them feel that they were part of something greater. He told them they were not mere soldiers, they were warriors of destiny, chosen by the gods to carve their names into history. This was not just motivation, it was psychological warfare at its finest. In war, fear spreads like wildfire. One spark of doubt, one sign of weakness, and an army crumbles. But Alexander knew how to control the emotions of his men. He did not just lead from the front, he fought from the front. While other kings commanded from behind, he charged first into battle, his sword cutting through the enemy like a god of war. His soldiers saw him bleed, saw him fight, saw him laugh in the face of death, and so they feared nothing, for if their king was invincible, so were they. Even in injury, Alexander used psychology. He did not hide his wounds, he showed them. He made his soldiers see that he was mortal, that he bled as they did, but if he could stand, so could they. He turned pain into inspiration, weakness into strength, and his army followed him, not as soldiers but as zealots, ready to die for his vision. But war was not won only on the battlefield. Alexander understood that conquering the mind was more important than conquering the sword. He spread rumors, whispers of his divine origin. He let the world believe that he was not just a king, but a son of Zeus himself. And when men believe they are fighting for a god, they do not hesitate. They do not question, they obey. When he entered Persia, he did not destroy their culture, he became it. He wore their robes, adopted their customs, called himself their rightful ruler. He made them believe that he was not a foreign invader, but their destined king. This was not just strategy, it was psychological domination. He did not demand loyalty, he made them desire it. Some resisted. Some thought they could defy him. Tyre, an impenetrable fortress, believed they could outlast the Macedonian king. But Alexander did not break cities with force, he broke them with fear. He laid siege for 7 months, showing no sign of weakness, and then, when he finally entered, he made an example of them. Thousands were slaughtered, enslaved, their city burned to the ground. The message was clear: resist and you will be erased from history. After Tyre, resistance crumbled. Before Alexander even reached a city, its rulers surrendered, not because they could not fight, but because they feared what would happen if they did. He had broken their spirits without lifting a sword. But there is a danger in absolute power. When a man becomes a god in the eyes of his followers, he begins to believe it himself, and that is when even the greatest fall. His closest friends, once his greatest allies, now feared his wrath. He executed those who questioned him, crushed any who doubted him. The man who had built an empire with the power of the mind was now a prisoner of his own legend. And then the unthinkable happened. His men, the warriors who had followed him to the ends of the earth, refused. They had fought, killed, conquered, but now they saw the man before them not as a god, but as a man obsessed. The spell was broken. The same psychology that had built his empire now threatened to destroy it. And in the end, even the greatest manipulator of minds could not escape the fate of all men.